What's going on, FA Nation? Jon Impemba here, bringing you your top 12 fantasy football wide receivers to draft for the 2024 fantasy football season. This is going to be a two-part video, so make sure you check out my top 5 fantasy football wide receivers at the end of this segment. Starting things off here at wide receiver 12, we're going to go with Puka Nacua. Yes, I am dropping Nacua down in my rankings. His current ADP hasn't coming off the board around wide receiver 7, wide receiver 8, but I got him as wide receiver 12. He's dealing with a little bit of a training camp injury, and we have a healthy Cooper Kupp, in which everybody is saying he looks fantastic so far this offseason. Last year, with Cooper Kupp healthy and on the field for the Rams, Puka Nacua finished as wide receiver 12 between weeks 5 and 17. Again, I still have Nacua as a low-end wide receiver 1, but I'm not taking him where he's currently going in drafts. My wide receiver 11, these next couple of guys are going to be movers up the board. I have Jaylen Waddle as my wide receiver 11. He's currently coming off the board as wide receiver 13 in PPR leagues. We saw 2 years ago he finished as the wide receiver 8 overall, and that was with Tyreek Hill having his wide receiver 1 year. So I'm not too concerned about the fact that Jaylen Waddle is the wide receiver 2 on his own team, because Tua Tagovailoa led the league last year in passing yards. He was on pace to throw for 4,600 plus yards 2 seasons ago as well before the injuries here. This Dolphins offense, well, its identity certainly is to run the football, especially in the red zone. They throw the football a ton. As long as Jaylen Waddle can stay healthy, last year he dealt with some injuries and yet still put forth a pretty solid season. I think you can easily see Jaylen Waddle coming back through with another wide receiver 1 type year. My wide receiver 10 is the biggest mover for me on the board, but this is obviously maybe a bit contingent on a Brandon Ayuk trade, and that is Deebo Samuel. Obviously, the rumors of Ayuk being dealt, the trade is yet to happen, but we saw in 2021, Samuel finished as the wide receiver 3 overall. I understand that Christian McCaffrey is now in town, so some of the rushing upside won't necessarily be there for Deebo Samuel. But even last year, in fantasy points per game in PPR leagues, he finished as wide receiver 13. I don't think it's a stretch that if Ayuk gets traded, Deebo Samuel could crack the top 10. And even for me, I think his upside as an elite wide receiver in that 49ers offense can have him coming in with a top 10 fantasy football season. At wide receiver 9, we have rookie Marvin Harrison Jr. It's hard not to fall in love with rookie wide receivers here. We've seen some of the elite guys come into this league and produce right away. And we heard all those years while he was at Ohio State that Marvin Harrison Jr. was the guy to watch. He's going to be a monster at the NFL level. He has size, he has speed, and we love this Cardinals offense with a healthy Kyler Murray. He's a top target right away. I got him coming in as wide receiver 9. At wide receiver 8, we have Davante Adams. This is a guy that I'm also moving up my rankings. Adams currently coming off the board just outside the top 10 fantasy football wide receivers. Listen, I understand that last year he had a down year, and not having Aaron Rodgers has certainly impacted some of the upside, but I am at least a bit more bullish here. We got a year or two at possibly of Aiden O'Connell and his development. They also brought in Gardner Minshew, who we know likes to sling the ball around the field. I'm expecting some improved quarterback play here for the Raiders, with Davante Adams being that top guy that you can get right now. And I think he'll finish inside the top 12 fantasy football wide receivers this year. Number 7 is Garrett Wilson. Remember how excited we all were to draft Garrett Wilson last year, now that he was going to have Aaron Rodgers? Unfortunately, that lasted just one play, and he was basically catching the football from the water boy for most of the year last year, yet he still put up a career-high season, got over 1,000 yards, had 95 catches. Assuming Aaron Rodgers can stay on the field and be healthy the entire year, I don't know how we see anything less than 1,200 yards and 100 catches from Garrett Wilson. So for me, he is my wide receiver 7. At wide receiver 6, we have A.J. Brown of the Philadelphia Eagles. Tried and true play right here. Maybe the safest guy on the board, in my opinion. Back-to-back 1,400-plus yard seasons out of Brown here. He's been healthy for both years with the Eagles, a concern of his coming over from Tennessee. Last year, the touchdowns fell off, but he set a career high with 106 receptions. I think everything's just going to stay the same here for A.J. Brown. The top target and a good offense. Jalen Hurts going to throw to him early and often here. They have a great connection. I'm loving A.J. Brown as maybe the safest pick of my top 12 fantasy football wide receivers. That's it, everybody. Good luck. Make sure you click the link on the video to get your top 5 fantasy football wide receivers to draft for 2024.